Welcome along to, well, this is not a DIY how-to guide today. It's an update on the track car. Updates have been a bit scarce, mainly to A, not being able to go where due to lockdown, and B, not being able to go anywhere due to lockdown. Anyway, so bit of an update for you with regards to the M5 track car and post DCT conversion, and see where we're going on with things. The first thing we've done is swapped out the old cold air induction kit where the pipework used to come from the maths down past the headlights and sit behind the bumper, using a smorgasbord selection of various silicone hoses to a couple of filters, one on each side. And that worked fine for ages, no issues at all, but servicing the filters became a bit of a pain in the arse. So we've swapped them out and used a pair of K&N Orion filters, fully enclosed filter units, 76mm on the back of it, mates direct to the MAF housing. A little bit of work had to be done in lathe to the MAF housing to allow that to fit. And then the 4-inch ducting goes down to the side of the bumper where we've got our 4-inch cold air intake. So that's just a cheap base port, you know, like a couple of quid off eBay. A 4-inch elbow which then goes to the ducting and to the filters. On the passenger side, or driver's side if you are continental and drive on the wrong side of the road, in there right at the back you can see just above that little cable tie we've got our thermistor, which is our air intake temperature sensor. It's basically what should be in there, and a lot of people relocate it and use something just mounted somewhere behind the bumper which measures ambient temperature. That's fine, but if you're wanting an actual reading of what the temperature of your air is going into the engine, then it's got to be mounted directly in the airflow for the air that's being ingested by your engine. So we've mounted our thyristor in that location and wired it to the back of the OEM MAF housing. Couple of wires, 10 minutes work, not a major deal. So that's what we've done for the air intake, and we can now hear the induction noise a little bit better. Gives the filters more chance to do the work, as getting the air that goes to them is, you know, being filtered by all of the filter instead of just part of it, or potentially part of it. And servicing the filters is a damn sight easier as well now. Brakes, we're still running the PB brake kit with its 8-pot calipers and 380mm brake discs up front. Fully floating brake discs. Absolutely zero issues at all. We've swapped out the pads for Project MU as used by BTCC boys. Zero fade, zero issues. The rear brake discs, we're still running the 385mm G30 OEM BMW stuff with the Brembo 4-pots off a Porsche. Brake pads wise, we've just chucked a set of yellow stuff pads in back. They're not amazing, but they're not, you know, it's not like running bits of timber or pieces of chocolate. So they do the job pretty well, and end of the day, they're only there to get rid of the heat to slow the car down, as that's why your brakes work. You know, they generate heat from the friction, which enforces transfer of kinetic energy. So the front brake bias compared to the rear is something in the region of 70% to the front, 30% to the rear, and that gives the car a nice feel on track. Diff wise, we are still running the standard E39 case. It's pointless changing it out because that would require major subframe modifications, but the internals we've swapped out. So we've got rid of the standard 3.15 to 1 ratio and we've changed it out for a 3.85 to 1, which is standard on the E90 and E92 M3 with a manual gearbox. absolutely fantastic acceleration wise. It allows me to keep the car in peak torque, higher up for rev range as well. And with the DCT gearbox conversion, it means that 7th gear now is the equivalent of what 6th gear used to be on the 420G. So absolutely no issues there. Gearbox wise, well, yeah, it's missing. Yeah, gearbox is not here. That is not good. The DCT gearbox we've had to take out as there was a little bit of an issue with the flywheel. Yeah, the drive splines on the flywheel didn't want to be splines anymore and decided to be smooth, which I can only put down to shock loading because it was a single mass flywheel, and / or the hardening process for the splined material, you know, for the steel that we used to make the splines. It hadn't worked and it became brittle, and then with the shock loading / harmonic frequencies from the engine, it just stripped the splines clean away. But it has given us an opportunity to examine the rear of the engine and ensure that we've got no leaks or any damage at the back, and redo the exhaust heat wrap as well from the Russfellows exhaust. So anybody who's fitted headers before from Russfellows knows that yes, they're a fantastic bit of kit, but they do have a bit of a dog leg that kicks out on each side as it comes down on the gearbox side. So we had to cut them out and sort of straight line them a little bit, trying to keep the lengths as equal as possible. That then allows the gearbox to be lifted in and out without much stress. So once my flywheel's back, the DCT box will be going back in, and then hopefully we should be ready for some more track day action within the next few weeks. So fingers crossed on that one. This is the DCT gearbox which we've used. It's out of a F82 M4 2020, which was written off, and we managed to acquire it for a very good price. So it's currently sat here after we've had to examine all the internals to make sure there's been no damage after the splines stripped on the flywheel. Fortunately, the clutch baskets are fine. There's no damage to the input drive splined shaft, and there was nothing in the oil sump when we took it all out, and the oil came out clean, so we've been able to reuse that, thankfully. The adapter plate which we've used, there's been no issues with that. It's a very well made bit of kit. It's only the flywheel that we've had problems with. Otherwise, trying to replace various parts on the gearbox, it can get very expensive. As can be seen here on the spares unit which we got, this is out of an E39 M5 which had suffered a catastrophic failure. So we bought it for the tail section and the case itself, just in case we needed anything. Those of you who've wondered what we've used to transmit the drive down to the diff from the gearbox, we've used a carbon fibre prop shaft off the F82 M4 again. So the front end of it stayed as it was out at factory. The rear end, we've removed the stupid tension nut that was at the back and had a flange yoke system welded in place, which then bolts up to the rear diff with zero issues, and it allows the drive to be transmitted through one piece carbon prop. It's a very tight fitting transmission tunnel. There's around about 5 or 6 millimeters either side of it to the heat shields and the fuel tank, so it had to be an absolutely precise lineup. Interior wise, we've seen the roll cage before, but I've not really given any details about it. So the roll cage came from Plysport in Germany, and it's somewhere between Cologne and the Venlo border, that sort of northwest area of Germany. So it came as a bolt-in kit, and we've welded some extra supports to the chassis for the rear part of it where it goes through the wheel arches. So there's some big plates welded on back of there, and same again on the front end where it goes down to the bottom of the A-pillar. The Corbu bucket seats, they weren't vastly expensive. The rails had to be made to suit, and the TRS harnesses fit to the harness bar as well. Then whilst we're in here, we've got the aftermarket steering wheel with the flappy paddles for controlling the gears, the control panel for the engine, cooling system, an extra OBD port, and then the DCT shifter as well. Dashboard we had flocked by a local company, and chap who did that did an absolutely superb job. And on the left hand side under the airbag panel you can see the USB port, so that's where we can plug into remote tune the gearbox through the HTG GCU. Now I'm not going to slate HTG for their controller. It's a good bit of kit, it really is, but it's so buggy with so many issues with the firmware, so many issues with the software. It makes me wish that I'd never done the DCT conversion, and I really like the conversion. It's been a good car with it in, but the issues with the software and the firmware are just absolutely shocking. So hopefully that'll get sorted out in due course. And then finally, whilst we're back under the bonnet, you'll notice that I've taken out the electric fan conversion, and I'm currently trialling the viscous coupling and fan from an E65 7 series. It's more efficient than the viscous fan that came with the M5 as standard. More importantly, it's surrounded by a large plastic ring which will keep any of the fan blades together in the event of a failure, and hopefully stop them taking out the water pump, radiator, coolant system, bonnet. You get the idea. So that's, so far it's proved to be a very, very good upgrade. Not vastly expensive neither, so well worth doing. Hopefully car will be back on road shortly. Next track day we've got booked is Donington. Hopefully we'll make it in time for that. Failing that was Cadwell Park, then we're back to the Nürburgring later on this year as well. So if you like this video, give my channel a like, subscribe, and any questions give us a shout. If you don't like this video, yeah, fair play. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but at least you watched it. So catch you soon.